what is leadership? How do you get there? So, first of all, leadership is a skill set. And as such, skill sets can be learned, they can be harnessed, they can be taught, and they can be passed on to others. It is, and as a skill set, you're able to take what you know, harness it, and you're able to show other people what leadership is about. However, most people don't understand the meaning of leadership, so there aren't as many leaders as we would hope for. Leadership is beyond titles, pay grades, and perks. It's an understanding. It's the way that you influence people and how they perceive that influence. It's a teacher's position to have their students smarter than they are. So as the students graduate and go up the ladder, they'll remember the teacher and they'll pass the accolades back to that teacher and tell friends about it. It's the same way with athletes. They always thank their coaches, their mentors. Those are the people that are leaders in every sense of the way, and they stay with the people that they mentor and the people that they teach for their entire life. It's a way of learning. You don't just sit in a class to become knowledgeable about leadership. It's not in the books. It's not in the readings. It's a way of acting. It's proactive. You can't just sit there and have a great teacher and get it. You have to work at it. So in order to work at it, you have to be able to define what are the skill sets that lead to leadership. And the skill sets are what I'm here to talk about. And I thought the best way of doing that was to walk you through my background and explain how I believe leadership skills have gotten me to where I am, which is retired. I went to Brooklyn College in the 60s. And during the 60s, there was a gentleman that created a school of brainstorming. His name was Robert McNamara. He was the Secretary of Defense during the Kennedy administration, and he was president of the World Bank. He created this whole idea and this concept of brainstorming. And what it is it's goal-directed. It's to get the answer to serious problems and get them done as quickly as possible. And what he did is put people together and have them discuss issues and get to solutions. And the purpose of this was to be able to hone all the skill sets of the people around them, so you're not just individually brilliant, you're collectively brilliant. And what these people did was just tremendous. Not that their policies were great, but it's the same skill set that executives have today, that senators, that congressmen have. What their job is to make sure that the goals are gotten for a purpose of success and joy sharing throughout. When I graduated, I knew that I understood this concept of brainstorming, and I knew I understood the concept of learning whatever was out there to try and harness that. So I didn't just take a job. I researched what company out there had the best training program, because training programs, in my mind, are the key to success. And the reason for that is you're taught by a professional organization about skill sets that you learn about leadership. The company was Sealand Service. Sealand Service was owned by a gentleman named Malcolm McLean. Malcolm McLean invented container shipping. It came out of McLean, Virginia. So what you probably may understand, or maybe even don't understand, a quick run-through on what container shipping is. Today you see these monster ships, and they have containers stacked up, buttressed so they can't move in high seas. That was never a concept before 1964. Before that, they had break bulk operation. What does that mean? All the cargo was put into nets and loaded into the belly of a ship in different holds, and it was secured so that the products couldn't fall back and forth because there's a lot of torque on the ocean. He created a system where he invented the container. It's a watertight, dry or refrigerated unit that gets stacked one upon another in different holds, and you can load and unload a vessel in break bulk. It takes 7 days in port. In containerization, it takes 18 hours. Steamship companies only make the money when the vessels are at sea. There is no revenue when it's in port. You got to deliver the cargo. So what he did is he speeded up the process of doing it. In this training program, they put me through 20 different departments. So I went through stowing, ship management, all of the 7 different accounting departments, personnel. You finish all the different departments. You're writing reports to the executive vice president every 2 weeks. You're being taught by the people that run this because, in quote, you're the elite people coming in. And they just started it based on this brainstorming concept of Robert McNamara. So I finished that, and I was given the opportunity of picking wherever I wanted to go, so I picked cost and budget because it's the global department of any firm. Stayed there a few years, and I had an opportunity to move to another company, so I moved to C-Train, which is a competitor. And I was doing that, and I went from cost and budget manager up to vice president of finance for the Caribbean division. So I got to fly down to the Caribbean all the time, along the coast. It was a wonderful job. I was young, I was in my 20s. It was fabulous. And then I said, I'm working so hard. What if I broke the mold and left and went out on my own? So I did. So I found some partners, and I opened up an art and artifacts business of importing art and artifacts from Southeast Asia. So I took off, and I lived in Southeast Asia. And I took a look at buying art and artifacts. And then when I came back, I was selling this stuff in the daytime. And I had my nights free, and since I'm ambitious, I opened up a restaurant. I called it a night bite. So that was opened up from 5:30 at night to 4 o'clock in the morning, and I had a daytime job as a partner in an art and artifacts business. The art and artifacts business didn't demand a lot. The restaurant was dawn to unconscious, 7 days a week. It was awful. So I did this for 6 or 7 years, and finally I just had it. And I threw in the towel, and I said, I'm done, I'm selling everything. And I went back to financial consulting. So here I am as a financial consultant, and I got a lot of jobs doing stuff. Financial programs, I was writing business plans for capital financing, I was doing documentation on Wall Street, I did some work for, I made a proposal and did some work for junkyards. Junkyards is, for me, one of the most fascinating businesses. You go to a junkyard because you need a part for something. I don't care if it's a refrigerator, a car, whatever. But they don't know what they have. So I set up a grid like the belly of a ship. And I said, what do you have? And where do you put everything? So all the cars by make and model were listed, and you know what's inside of a car, like the carburetors and the tires and whatever. And I said, now you have a computer program that'll say you need something for a Lincoln Town Car 1954. You plug it into the computer, and boom, it tells you the location of where it is, and that's the part, and you go harness it out of there and you sell it. So it makes getting the product very easy. So those are the kinds of business that I was doing. And then lo and behold, I get a call from the president of a company called Faro Lines. So I worked with him over at C-Train. He rose up from being the controller at C-Train to the president of Faro. And he said, I need somebody like you to help me out. We're running into trouble. I said, make me an offer. He did. I stayed there for 7.5 years. And I went from a finance person to the company's business manager, which is like a managing director. What I saw was that in the steamship business, The way that you rate cargo for purposes of charging money is called a tariff. It's a revenue source. And so if a person's selling, transporting haute couture clothing or pharmaceuticals, you go to a tariff and you take a look at it. But you really don't know what's in the container. So people that were sending cargo from Italy that's haute couture were just listing as rags. And since you can't get into the container, you don't know what they're doing it. But customs can get in for purpose of making sure that they're not taking in stuff. So only customs can get in there. And I said, this is a problem because we could be handling cargo that we're not getting the right revenue for, but we can't identify that, so we have to figure out a way of moving cargo for a profit. So what I did is I set up a grid system. Again, everything's grid systems. You have to go to the numbers. From the point of putting cargo into a container at a manufacturer's warehouse, through the handling of the container by a trucker, brought to a terminal yard, put aboard a ship, moved over the ocean, discharged, put into a holding area, direct out to the final buyer of the goods. Everything had a bucket. And I created a cost for every single bucket. Point to point. Thousands and thousands of codes. And all you do is you just drop in the product and you see how much it costs. You put in the codes of where it's going. Origin to destination, you know the path it's going. It just triggers all that. You see the cost it involves. You have the grid from the revenue. If it costs more money in cost, you just say, I don't want to take this cargo. And you pass it on to the competitor. So you always have a profit margin. You have to make a business decision. Sometimes in container shipping, you have to move an empty into position. So you have to take in the empty cost. And so it's a little complicated, but it was all done through a system. Before the laptop, all this had to be drawn out on paper, and I had to have programmers code it and put it into these monster machines that would be half a floor over here. And so you had to go through the pains of systems analysis and design by knocking it all down, and I call it going by the numbers. You just have to build it. It takes time, and you figure it out. And the company could not pay for this because it was very expensive to have all this labor. So I wrote a proposal to the Department of Transportation, and they sponsored it as long as I made it available to the U.S. flag industry. And I said, sure. So I presented this whole thing in Chicago to the U.S. container shipping industry and the trucking industry, and I made this available to them. Nobody's system was as good as the one I built. But they all had the volume of how to do it and how to create it, and every company was very excited, and I got published from that. So here I am in this kind of a business, and I'm having a great time, and I'm on top of the world, and I read a newspaper article, and I read about Boesky and Milken. They're making between $80 and $800 million a year. And I said, oh my God, I'm in the wrong industry. I said, how do I get to that industry? And so here I am, literally at the cream of the crop in the transportation industry. Understood it, knew it well, studied it hard. All of this is leadership. The reason I say it's leadership is because you have to learn how to learn. It is active. You have to be active. Learning is an active approach to getting things done. It is not passive. So I said, I have no knowledge base. I can't go to Merrill Lynch and say I am a clever person. I'm a Brooklyn College graduate. I don't know how to get there. So I researched, how do I get into anything? And I said, you have to get in through young, emerging markets. Japan was just coming into the United States in the broker-dealer industry back in '87. So I wrote to a company called Kokusai, which in Japan is the equivalent of a Bear Stearns, which is gone, which is Morgan Stanley today. Anyway, it was like the 35th largest broker-dealer in the world. And they were trying to put together a representative office in the United States. And I said, I can do this. I understand how to incorporate a business. I understand how to write manuals. I understand all of this. But I'm ignorant about the broker-dealer industry. So I said, I applied for the position. They accepted me based on my credentials and what I've published and what I was able to do of getting a company incorporated and getting a company through the system. And I said I need to have the title of Chief Financial Officer. I had to come in with no experience at the absolute top of what I could do because there was a purpose. I went to KPMG, at that time it was in the Big Ten in CPA firms. I went to their consulting division and I said, I need a partner and a manager. Teach me the broker-dealer industry. I have to learn this in 6 months. I don't know, you got to teach it to me. Just like the education of a training program in the steamship company. You have to go to the top, and KPMG had the best consulting division of the CPA firms. Arthur Anderson had one, but we know what happened to it. Anyway, I did it. And they had a software package from McDonnell Douglas. They're gone, but they used to build airplanes and other stuff. Anyway, I was able to flow the data and the information of 22 different departments in a broker-dealer through data point entries, everything by the numbers, write it up, a couple of 100 pages long, and then draw it as a schematic on one page. And all it was boxes with lines pointing, dash lines for communication, solid lines for hard copy. So you know what was going on inside the broker-dealer industry. And then I understood more about the broker-dealer industry than anybody in the industry for their whole lives because I understood every single department. Most people didn't understand, they know their own department. So then I learned that, and I'm there at this company, Kokusai, for 7.5 years. They take what I did, they sent it back to Japan, it was translated into Japanese, and they sent it out to all their offices on how a broker-dealer works. So I'm there 7.5 years, and I'm happy. I'm in the broker-dealer industry, but the money was still, as a CFO, it wasn't in the millions. It was lucrative, but it wasn't in the millions. So another company came in from Korea called LG. They make phones and appliances. They had a small broker-dealer division coming into the United States at $4 billion. That's how big LG is, because it's a multi-hundred-billion-dollar operation. They wanted me, I joined them. So they paid me, thank God, I was making 7 figures from them. And I finally said, oh my goodness, this is too happy to believe. And I'm there, and I'm in charge of their London division, so I'm flying back and forth to England, also doing the same thing that I was doing. But I got there because I understood what leadership was about. You have to be active. You have to demand with certification of what you want to do. And the way that you do that is by the numbers. That's what works for me because I'm a numbers guy. But I used to work out, it was so boring. I had calculated how many inches is it to the moon. I mean, numbers go through my head. Something wrong with me. So I could do things by the numbers. It's my skill set. So I stayed at LG for 4 years. And then a new industry was emerging, and it was called day trading. So you ever hear the term day trading? Yeah. So day trading, I equate this to being, for day traders, just so you have, for those that don't understand it, it's an individual trading his own funds and or maybe some family funds in the marketplace and trying to take a little piece of action and not being noticed because you're dealing, even if you're rich and you're dealing with $3 million in your pocket, you're against trillions of dollars from the main guys. So I equate it to being a fly on the ass of a horse. You're just unnoticed. And that's what day trading is about. Once you get noticed, they squash you. And that's what happens to day traders. They blow up. They think they can make money and make money and make money. And as soon as they go all in, they're noticed. And then Merrill Lynch will come and squash it. And that's what they did. So the firm understood that. We had customers and customers making a lot of money. And then the day trading business started to unfold. So we talked about getting professional managers, the hedge fund people, the B2B people using our software. So we moved to a direct access broker-dealer, so we were trading doing the same activities, but giving it out to the hedge funds and the B2Bs, and they were trading using our software. And what that did was open us up to the big boys. So Merrill Lynch was now using our software to execute their trades on the marketplace. And there were all a bunch of tunnels and pipelines into the marketplace. We did this for about, I was there 9 years, we did this for 7 years, and finally we got notice. And 2 years later, I wrote the business plan to sell the company, and we sold it for $70 million. I got my out, and instead of retiring, I opened up my consulting business again, because that's always my go-to, because I can't sit still. So I opened up my consulting business, and then I started doing work, writing business plans for venture capital